Welcome to today's episode, presented in the form of an audiobook-style deep dive. We're exploring one of the most thought-provoking ideas you'll hear this year, that almost every issue in your life can be traced back to one core problem. You care too much about what other people think of you. Think about that for a second. How many decisions, anxieties, and setbacks in your life have been shaped by fear of judgment, criticism, or rejection? This episode unpacks the ideas in The Courage to be Disliked, co-authored by Japanese philosopher Ichiro Kishimi and writer Fumitake Koga. Together, they take us on a philosophical and psychological journey grounded in the teachings of Alfred Adler, one of the lesser-known yet revolutionary thinkers in psychology. According to the authors, virtually every worry a person has can be traced to external factors, not because the world is to blame, but because we're too invested in how others perceive us. Internal worry, they argue, is a myth. They insist that no anxiety exists in isolation from society. Behind every mental burden lies the shadow of someone else's expectations, judgment, or imagined opinion. And here's where things start to really shift. Kishimi and Koga propose a bold solution. They believe that life is only as complicated as we allow it to be. Their central thesis? If you want to be happy, you need just one thing: the courage to be disliked. Now, that's a powerful statement. It goes against everything we're conditioned to believe. From childhood, we're taught to please others: teachers, parents, peers, bosses. Our culture reinforces the idea that approval equals value. But what happens when chasing that approval becomes a trap? When our self-worth is shackled to someone else's reaction? Kishimi and Koga argue that this is exactly what leads to unhappiness. They're not saying you should intentionally provoke others or live recklessly. They're simply pointing out that freedom, the ability to live authentically, means accepting that not everyone will like you. And that's okay. It's not confidence you lack, they write. It's courage. The courage to risk being judged. The courage to live on your own terms. And yes, the courage to be misunderstood, even disliked. They go further. The courage to be happy requires the courage to be disliked. That's a concept worth pausing on. Many of us assume that happiness is a universal goal. Who wouldn't want to be happy? But Kishimi and Koga flip the script. They suggest that some people unconsciously choose unhappiness, using it as a strategy to avoid change, discomfort, or risk. This idea, rooted in Adler's psychology, emphasizes that humans are goal-driven beings. According to Adler, every thought, feeling, and behavior is a means to an end, even if we're unaware of what that end is. And more importantly, we are not prisoners of our past. We are not defined by trauma or past events. Rather, we choose what meaning those experiences have in our lives. This is a revolutionary thought in a world where so much emphasis is placed on trauma and therapy. Of course, the authors aren't dismissing trauma or suggesting it doesn't matter, but they make a critical distinction. Trauma isn't destiny. What you've gone through doesn't determine who you are. It's the interpretation and goal you attach to that experience that truly shapes your life. Here's a striking example they give. Imagine someone who claims they're too anxious to attend a job interview. At first glance, it seems like anxiety is the problem. But Kishimi and Koga flip the narrative. They argue the person isn't trying to get the job, but rather trying to avoid failure. The anxiety is created as a way to avoid the risk of rejection. This perspective is uncomfortable, but it's liberating. It gives you back control. If emotions serve our goals, then changing our goals can reshape how we feel. In a way, it demystifies our struggles and invites us to reclaim our power. But here's where things get really interesting. The authors say that many people choose unhappiness because it allows them to hold on to the desire for approval while avoiding the risk of failing to get it. When approval becomes impossible to earn, some people don't let go. They double down. They create negative emotions, fear, self-doubt, self-hatred, as a way to justify giving up. It's not that they don't want approval anymore. It's that they've convinced themselves they can't get it because they're somehow flawed. It becomes a form of emotional self-protection, but in reality, it's a trap, a loop of misery. They argue that true change and true freedom comes only when we break out of this cycle. And this mindset doesn't just affect how we feel, it poisons our relationships. People who are always chasing approval start to see life as a competition. If someone else succeeds, it feels like you failed. If someone gets praise, you feel invisible. This zero-sum approach turns connection into rivalry. Even worse, these approval-seeking individuals often believe relationships are based on sacrifice and obligation. They keep score. I did this for you. Now you owe me. It sounds like kindness on the surface, but it's really a disguised transaction. Think of someone who throws a surprise party for a friend, then stews in resentment when the gesture isn't reciprocated. They weren't really doing it for love or joy. They were doing it to earn something in return. And when that return doesn't come, it breeds bitterness. So what's the alternative? According to Kishimi and Koga, the path to real happiness lies in contribution. Instead of chasing approval, happy people focus on being useful. And not because it makes them saints, but because it fulfills them. This isn't about self-sacrifice. It's about self-fulfillment. This is a powerful reframing. Helping others isn't noble because it's selfless. It's noble because it's selfish in the best possible way. It makes you feel good to be of service. That's not weakness, it's wisdom. And when you contribute to others in a meaningful way, you no longer need recognition. You already know your worth. You've stopped outsourcing your value to others. As the authors put it, if one truly feels they are of use to someone, the need for recognition disappears. This also ties into a deep psychological need: belonging. Happy people don't seek to dominate others or outshine them. They celebrate their success because they don't see life as a competition anymore. They don't need to win to matter. In fact, they believe that simply by existing, you have value. You don't need to be extraordinary to matter. Your presence, your existence, is already meaningful to someone. That idea is quietly radical. In a culture obsessed with hustle, achievement, and recognition, this book offers a gentle rebellion. It says, you're enough, even if you don't prove it to anyone. Finally, the authors emphasize the importance of living in the present. Happiness isn't some distant reward for future success. It's a choice you can make right now. This doesn't mean you abandon ambition, but it means you don't postpone your joy. If you died tomorrow, would your life still feel worthwhile? That's the test. If the answer is no, it might be time to realign your goals, not with what others expect from you, but with what you truly value. If you died tomorrow, would your life still feel worthwhile? That's the test. If the answer is no, it might be time to realign your goals, not with what others expect from you, but with what you truly value. In closing, the courage to be disliked challenges us to ask, whose life are we really living? Are we chasing a dream that isn't ours? Are we trying to impress people who may never even notice? You won't be liked by everyone, and that's not a flaw. It's freedom. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner you can start living for yourself.